The day humans learned they were not alone in the universe was not a day of celebration. It was a Tuesday, and Tuesdays were rarely good for anything important, as Admiral George Harrison often said. George stood at the window of the lunar diplomatic station, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The Earth hung in the blackness of space like a blue marble, peaceful and unaware of what was about to happen. The Admiral's reflection stared back at him from the reinforced glass. Gray, hair cut short, deep lines around his eyes from years of squinting at screens and stars. "They're here," said Natalie Powell, appearing beside him. Natalie was Earth's best diplomat. She had negotiated peace between nations that had been at war for decades. But today she looked nervous. Her normally steady hands fidgeted with the sleeve of her formal blue uniform. "How many ships?" George asked. 7. One for each species in their confederation, they say. George nodded. The Dravid Confederation had made contact 3 weeks ago, sending signals that Earth scientists had quickly decoded. They wanted to meet, to welcome humanity to the galactic community. It sounded friendly enough, but George had been in enough wars to know that friendly messages often hid dangerous intentions. "Let's not keep our guests waiting," he said. The conference room was designed to impress. A round table sat in the center, with the flags of Earth's nations lining the walls. Screens showed views of Earth, Mars, and the other human settlements. In the solar system, the United Earth Council members were already seated, 12 men and women representing the regions of Earth. When the doors slid open, silence fell across the room. The Dravid delegation entered. Their leader, Sortal, was tall and thin with bluish skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Behind him came representatives of the other 6 species, some with too many limbs, others with none at all. They moved with the confidence of those who had done this many times before. "Welcome to human space," Natalie said, stepping forward. "We are honored by your presence." Zortal's large eyes blinked slowly. "The honor is ours," he said in perfect English. "Your species has accomplished much in a short time. We have watched your progress with great interest." The meeting began with pleasantries and presentations. The Dravid showed images of their worlds, spoke of their history and their place in the galaxy. They talked of trade, of cultural exchange, of technology that would benefit Earth. For hours, the conversation flowed smoothly. Earth's representatives asked questions about faster-than-light travel, about cures for diseases, about the other intelligent species in the galaxy. The Dravid answered patiently, like teachers explaining simple concepts to eager students. But then came the matter of Earth's military. "We have observed your weapons," Sortal said. "Primitive but concerning. As a condition of joining the galactic community, you must disarm. For your own protection, of course." George felt his back stiffen. "Disarm? Our entire military?" "Yes," Sortal replied. "The Confederation will provide protection. This is standard for all new species. You will be allowed a small defensive force, but nothing that could threaten peace." "And if we refuse?" asked Councilman Frank Peters, his voice hard. Sortal's expression didn't change. "That would be unfortunate. All species in the Confederation agree to these terms. It is for the greater good." The room erupted in debate. Some council members argued for acceptance. The benefits of alien technology outweighed the loss of military independence. Others, including George, disagreed strongly. "We cannot surrender our right to defend ourselves," Natalie said finally. "Perhaps there's a compromise." "There is no compromise on this matter," Sortal interrupted. "You have not seen the dangers that exist in the galaxy. We have. The Confederation stands united on this requirement." The meeting ended with no resolution. The Dravid delegation returned to their ships, giving Earth 48 hours to decide. The private meeting room afterward, the Earth Council argued late into the night. "They've done this before," George said. "They find a new species, offer them protection, and gradually take control. We'd be surrendering our independence. But their technology could solve so many problems," argued Councilwoman Susan Rivera. "Clean energy, extended lifespans, an end to hunger. At what cost? George countered. Once we disarm, what's to stop them from making more demands? In the end, they voted. 8-4 against surrendering their military forces. Natalie was tasked with delivering their decision. The next morning, she stood before Zortal on a video screen, her voice steady despite her fear. While we appreciate your offer to join the Confederation, we cannot accept the condition of disarmament. Earth wishes to maintain its independent defensive capabilities while establishing peaceful relations. Zortal was silent for a long moment. I regret that you have made this choice, he said finally. Perhaps a demonstration will help you understand the seriousness of our position. The screen went black. 30 minutes later, alarms blared throughout the lunar station. On the monitors, a bright flash appeared on the surface of Mars. The new Olympus colony, home to 8,000 people, was gone in an instant. They destroyed it, George whispered, his face pale with shock and rage. Without warning, when Zortal's face appeared again on the screen, his expression was unchanged. This is but a small demonstration of our power. We will leave a force to monitor your planet while you reconsider your position. You have 30 days to comply with our terms. After that, we will be forced to take more direct action. 6 of the 7 ships departed, leaving one massive vessel in orbit around Earth. The signal ended. George looked around the room at the stunned faces of the council members. They're not here to welcome us, he said grimly. They're here to conquer us. In the emergency session that followed, George presented a plan so risky that half the council thought he had lost his mind. We make it look like we're complying, he explained. We publicly announce our intention to disarm. We show them videos of ships being dismantled, of weapons being destroyed. Meanwhile, we prepare Operation Single Thread. What's Operation Single Thread? Asked Councilman Peters. George pulled up an image of a sleek black ship, unlike any vessel Earth had produced before. The USS Defiant, stealth technology, experimental drive system, and a crew of our best and brightest. While the Dravid think, we're surrendering, we send the Defiant to follow them when they leave, to gather intelligence about their worlds, their technology, their weaknesses. One ship? Susan asked incredulously. What can one ship do against their entire civilization? George's lips curled into a hard smile. Sometimes, councilwoman, all you need is one thread to unravel an entire tapestry. As the council debated, Earth's military leaders began quiet preparations. The Defiant was moved from its secret dock to a hidden base beneath the Pacific Ocean. Lists of potential crew members were compiled and evaluated, and in his private quarters, Admiral George Harrison began drafting a message to a man who had once been Earth's most brilliant naval captain, a man who had retired after a controversial battle in which he had disobeyed orders to save his crew. Alan, he wrote, I know you swore never to command again, but Earth needs you for one last mission, a mission that might be one way, a mission that could save our species. Outside, the Dravid ship hung in orbit like a sword over Earth's head, its weapons ready to strike if humanity failed to bend the knee. But the Dravid had made one critical mistake. They had threatened humans. And humans, when threatened, don't surrender. They get clever. Captain Alan Murphy stood on the rocky shore of Lake Superior, skipping stones across the calm water. Each stone jumped 4 or 5 times before sinking into the depths. His cabin sat behind him, small and simple, just the way he liked it. 3 years of peace after 15 years of service. 3 years of quiet after the noise of war and command. The sound of an approaching helicopter broke the silence. Alan didn't turn around. He knew who it was. The helicopter landed in the clearing behind his cabin, and soon heavy footsteps approached over the pine needles and dirt. Nice place you have here, said Admiral George Harrison. Bit remote. That's the point, Alan replied, tossing another stone. This one skipped 6 times. I'm retired, George. Earth needs you. Alan finally turned. George looked older than when Alan had last seen him. More gray in his hair, more lines on his face, more weight on his shoulders. What happened? Alan asked. As George explained about the Dravid Confederation, the ultimatum and the destruction of the Mars colony, Alan's expression grew darker. By the time George finished describing Operation Single Thread, Alan was already walking toward his cabin. "Where are you going?" George called after him. "2. Pack," Alan said without looking back. "1 bag enough?" "More than enough," George replied with a smile. "The uniform still fits, I hope." "We'll find out." 3 days later, Captain Alan Murphy stood in a massive underground hangar beneath the Pacific Ocean. Before him floated the USS Defiant, suspended, in a massive pool of water. The ship was unlike any vessel he had ever commanded. Sleek and black with no visible weapons or propulsion systems, it looked more like a shadow than a ship. "She's beautiful," Alan said softly, "and deadly," added a woman's voice behind him. Alan turned to see a tall, athletic woman with short blonde hair and sharp green eyes. She wore the uniform of a lieutenant commander. "Captain Murphy, meet your tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander." "Olivia Green," George said, "former intelligence operative, best shot in the fleet." Olivia saluted crisply. "Honored to serve with you, Captain. Your battle at the Strait of Malacca is still taught at the Academy." Alan nodded, trying not to think about the decisions he had made that day, the orders he had disobeyed, the lives he had saved and lost. "The rest of your command crew is waiting inside," George said. "I handpicked them myself." The interior of the Defiant was as impressive as its exterior. Smooth walls with screens that showed whatever was outside the ship, making it seem as if they were standing in open space. The bridge was circular, with stations arranged around a central command. Chair to 3 people stood at attention as Alan entered. "Dr. Samuel Martinez," George introduced a lean man with kind eyes and a serious expression. "Xenobiologist. He's been studying the limited Dravid biological data we have. If anyone can find a weakness in their physiology, it's him." Samuel nodded. "Captain." "Chief Engineer Patricia White," George continued, gesturing to a short woman with curly red hair and hands that couldn't seem to stay still. "Helped design this ship's experimental drive system. Genius-level problem solver." Patricia gave a quick salute. "Ship's ready to fly, Captain. Just say the word." And finally, Lieutenant Daniel Clark, navigation specialist. "Has a spatial awareness that borders on supernatural." Daniel was young, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to be looking at something far away. "I've plotted 7 possible pursuit courses based on the Dravid fleet's departure vector, sir." Alan looked at his new crew, then at the ship around them. "Admiral, a word in private." In the captain's ready room, Alan didn't mince words. "This is a suicide mission," George sighed. "Possibly. Probably. But it's the only chance Earth has. We need to know more about the Dravid, their weaknesses, their true intentions. The Defiant is our only ship with the technology to possibly follow them undetected. And my crew knows this is one way." They all volunteered. "Earth officially listed the Defiant as destroyed in an accident yesterday. As far as the world and the Dravid know, all of you are already dead." Alan nodded slowly. "What exactly am I carrying on this ship, George? I can tell it's not just scanning equipment." George's expression was grim. "Prototype weapons based on what we could reverse engineer from scans of the Dravid ships, and something else. A last resort." "A bomb?" "Let's just say if all else fails, the Defiant can make sure the Dravid remember Earth for a very long time." Alan didn't ask for details. Some things were better not known until they needed to be. The launch was scheduled for midnight. As the crew made final preparations, Alan studied the mission briefing in his quarters. The Dravid fleet had departed the solar system 3 days ago, heading toward what they called the Confederation hub worlds, roughly 40 light-years distant. With the Defiant's experimental drive, they could follow in the fleet's wake, using the disturbed space-time to mask their own signature. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Olivia Green stepped inside. "Final weapons check complete, Captain. All systems green." "Thank you, Commander." Something else on your mind? Olivia hesitated. Permission to speak freely, sir? Always. Why did you take this mission? After what happened at Malacca, after swearing never to command again, why come back for what might be a one-way trip? Alan looked at the photo on his desk. His wife and son, both killed when Chinese forces had bombed Singapore during the Pacific. Conflict. The same conflict that had led to the Battle of Malacca, where Alan had disobeyed direct orders to retreat, instead staying to evacuate civilians even as enemy ships closed in. Because sometimes, Commander, the only thing worse than dying for something is living for nothing. Olivia nodded slowly. I understand, sir. She hesitated again. You should know the crew has been talking about Malacca. We think. You did the right thing. After she left, Alan sat for a long time looking at the photo. Then he put it away in a drawer. It was time to focus on the future, whatever little of it they might have left. At midnight, the underwater hangar opened to the dark Pacific above. The Defiant rose silently, water streaming from its black hull. On the bridge, Alan sat in the command chair, his crew at their stations. Stealth systems engaged, reported Olivia. Course plotted to intercept the Dravid Wake Trail, Daniel added. Engine signature masked, Patricia confirmed from engineering. Will look like background, radiation to any sensors. Dr. Martinez stood quietly to one side, watching the proceedings with scientific curiosity. On the main screen, the Dravid monitoring ship appeared, a massive shadow against the stars. As they watched, it launched smaller craft toward Earth. More observers to ensure human compliance with the disarmament demands. Take us out, Lieutenant Clark, Alan ordered. Nice and easy, right past their big ship. Let's see if our stealth technology is as good as advertised. The Defiant moved silently through space, approaching the massive alien vessel. For a tense minute, they held their breath as they passed within kilometers of the enemy ship. No alarms. No sudden movements from the alien craft. They were invisible. We're clear, Daniel announced finally. Plotting course to follow the main Dravid fleet. Alan nodded, feeling the weight of command settling on his shoulders again. Engage experimental. Drive when ready, Chief White. Patricia's fingers danced across her console. Drive engaging in 3, 2, 1. The stars on the screen blurred, and the Defiant leapt forward into the unknown. Behind them, Earth grew smaller in the distance, a blue dot carrying the hopes of humanity. And now, Alan said quietly, we hunt, we. 2 weeks passed as the Defiant followed the invisible trail left by the Dravid fleet. The experimental drive worked better than expected, carrying them through space at speeds humans had only dreamed of before. The crew settled into a routine of constant vigilance, watching for any sign that they had been detected. Alan sat in his quarters reviewing the data they had collected so far. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Enter, he called. Dr. Samuel Martinez stepped inside, holding a tablet. Dark circles under his eyes showed he hadn't slept much. Captain, I've been analyzing the biological scans we took when we passed through the Dravid fleet's wake, Samuel said. I think I've found something interesting. Show me, Alan replied, gesturing to the chair across from him. Samuel sat down and placed the tablet on the desk. The dominant species in the Confederation, the ones who call themselves the Dravid Prime, have a unique cellular structure. Their cells contain high levels of copper instead of iron like ours. Why is that important? Alan asked. Because copper-based, blood is highly sensitive to certain types of radiation that wouldn't harm humans much, Samuel explained. If we could generate a pulse of this specific radiation, it could potentially incapacitate them without killing them. Alan nodded slowly. Good work, Doctor. Keep digging. Any weakness could be crucial. After Samuel left, Alan headed to the bridge. The screens showed unfamiliar stars. They were farther from Earth than any human had ever traveled before. Status, report, he ordered as he took his seat in the command chair. All systems running in stealth mode, Olivia reported from tactical. No sign of detection. We're approaching what appears to be the edge of Dravid space, Daniel added from navigation. Sensor buoys ahead. I've plotted a course to avoid them. Any luck with their communications, Chief White? Alan asked. Patricia looked up from her engineering station with a small smile. Actually, yes, I've been working on decoding their transmissions. They use an encryption method similar to quantum entanglement, but with a flaw I've managed to exploit. Give me another day and I think I can tap into their communications network. Alan felt a small spark of hope. If they could listen in on Dravid communications, they might learn far more than expected. Make it your priority, he ordered. 3 days later, the Defiant hung in space near a massive space station orbiting a blue-green gas giant. The station served as a hub for Dravid ships, with dozens of vessels coming and going every hour. Deutschem 1. Crew gathered in the conference room, looking at the holographic display of the station. Their security is impressive, Olivia said, pointing to defensive arrays positioned around the station. But they're clearly not expecting any threats this deep in their territory. The patrols are routine, predictable. What have we learned from their communications? Alan asked. Patricia tapped on her tablet, and new information appeared in the hologram. A lot, actually. The Dravid Confederation isn't as unified as they wanted us to believe. There are tensions between the 7 species, especially between the dominant Dravid Prime and the others. Why did they target Earth? Samuel asked the question they all had been wondering. Patricia's expression grew serious. That's the most interesting part. According to internal communications, humans were considered, and I quote, potentially destabilizing to the established order. They believe our adaptability and creativity make us unpredictable, dangerous. They're afraid of us, Olivia said, surprised. Not exactly afraid, Patricia corrected. More like concerned about what we might become. They've dealt with other species before, but something about humans worried them enough to demand our immediate disarmament. Alan leaned forward. Have you found anything about their military capabilities, fleet movements? Yes, Patricia said, bringing up new data. They're gathering a large force at their homeworld. From what I can tell, they're preparing for full conquest if Earth doesn't comply with their demands. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. We need to get closer to their command centers, Alan decided. Daniel, plot a course to the Dravid Prime homeworld. We need better intelligence. Captain, Olivia said hesitantly, that would put us right in the heart of their territory. If we're detected, then we'd better not be detected, Alan replied firmly. This is what we came for. The Dravid Prime homeworld was a beautiful planet with 3 small moons. From orbit, its surface appeared covered with sprawling cities, connected by glowing transportation networks. The Defiant maintained its stealth orbit, scanning and recording everything. On the bridge, Olivia suddenly straightened at her tactical station. Captain, I've detected something unusual in their ship. Design, she said, excitement in her voice. When their ships communicate with each other, they use a specific electromagnetic frequency that creates a momentary vulnerability in their shield systems. Alan moved to her station to look at the data. How momentary? Just seconds. But during that time, their shields have a fluctuation pattern. If we could hit them with precisely the right counter frequency, we could disable their shields without them knowing what happened, Alan finished. Good work, Commander. Document everything. Just then, Patricia's voice came over the comm system from engineering. Captain, I've managed to hack deeper into their network. You need to see this. In engineering, Patricia had transformed her workspace into a data analysis center. Screens surrounded her, each showing different aspects of Dravid communications and systems. What am I looking at? Alan asked. Their supply chain, Patricia said proudly. I've mapped out how they move resources between planets. There are critical junctions here, here, and here. She pointed to different spots on a star map. If these were disrupted, it would cause significant problems for their military operations. Alan studied the data. You're suggesting we move from reconnaissance to sabotage? Patricia nodded. A few small strategic strikes could create confusion, and buy Earth more time. Alan thought carefully. Their mission was to gather intelligence, not start a war. But disrupting the Dravid supply chain might slow down their plans for Earth. We'll need to be extremely careful, he said finally. One small strike first, to test their response. If it works, we can consider others. As they prepared their first sabotage mission, Samuel made another discovery. He burst onto the bridge, tablet in hand. Captain, I've been analyzing the biological data more thoroughly. The Dravid Prime don't just rule the other species in the Confederation. They control them. There's evidence of biological manipulation, possibly even mind control through specialized pheromones. Are you saying the other species aren't willing partners in the Confederation? Alan asked. Exactly, Samuel confirmed. They're subjugated, not allied. Some might even welcome liberation. Alan looked out at the Dravid homeworld below them. What had started as a simple intelligence-gathering mission was becoming something much more complex. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They might be fighting for other oppressed species as well. New objective, he announced to his crew. We continue gathering intelligence, but we also look for potential allies among the Confederation species. If the Dravid have enemies within their own ranks, we need to find them. The crew nodded in agreement. Behind enemy lines, with no backup, and no way home, they had discovered a greater purpose than they had imagined. Let's show them what one human ship can do, Alan said, his eyes fixed on the stars beyond. The first act of sabotage was simple but effective. The Defiant positioned itself near a Dravid supply depot, a space station that processed and distributed fuel for their military vessels. Using the electromagnetic frequency weakness Olivia had discovered, they fired a precisely calibrated pulse at a fuel transport ship just as it was communicating with the station. The ship's shields failed at exactly the right moment. A second, smaller pulse disabled its navigation systems, sending it drifting into another transport. Neither ship was destroyed, but the collision caused a fuel leak that forced the evacuation of that section of the station. From their hidden position, the crew of the Defiant watched the chaos unfold. No casualties, Olivia reported, but they'll be cleaning up that mess for days. Alan nodded with satisfaction. And they have no idea what caused it. Good work, everyone. Now let's move before they start a thorough scan of the area. As the Defiant slipped away, Daniel studied the readings on his navigation console with a puzzled expression. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from the third moon of the gas giant ahead, he said. It doesn't match any Dravid technology we've seen so far. Is it a threat? Alan asked. I don't think so. It almost seems like a distress signal, but using very old technology. Alan considered for a moment. Change course. Let's take a closer look. The third moon was small and rocky, with no atmosphere. As they approached, they saw signs of mining operations on the surface, but the distress signal came from deep within, a crater on the dark side. Scan for life forms, Alan ordered. Detecting approximately 200 non-Dravid life signs, Samuel reported from the science station. Their biology is different from any Confederation species we've identified. They're hiding, Olivia said. Those energy readings are too weak to be noticed unless you're specifically looking for them. Alan made his decision. We need to make contact. Commander Green, prepare a small away team. Dr. Martinez, you're with her. Full environmental suits and weapons on stun only. 2 hours later, Olivia and Samuel returned to the Defiant with a guest. The alien was humanoid but clearly not human, tall and slender with pale blue skin and 6 fingers on each hand. Large, dark eyes dominated a face with minimal nose and mouth features. It wore simple clothing that looked worn and patched many times. Captain Murphy, this is Zin Lara, Olivia introduced. Leader of the Viridian Resistance. Zin Lara bowed slightly. Captain, your people are unknown to us, but any enemy of the Dravid Prime is a friend to Viridians. In the conference room, Zin Lara told the story of her people. The Viridians had once been a peaceful, technologically advanced civilization. When the Dravid Confederation found them a century ago, they initially offered friendship and alliance. But soon after the Viridians joined, The Dravid Prime began restricting their activities, taking control of their government, and eventually reducing them to little more than slave labor. "We mine resources from this moon and others like it across Dravid space," Zinlara explained. "Those who resist are corrected using biological agents that make them compliant." "You've avoided this correction," Samuel noted. Zinlara nodded. "Some of us have a natural immunity to their control methods. We formed a resistance, but we are few and scattered. We have been waiting for an opportunity to fight back, but the Dravid military is too powerful." "Until now," Alan said. "We've discovered weaknesses in their systems. With your knowledge of their territory and our technology, we might be able to do some real damage." Hope flickered in Zinlara's large eyes. "You would help us?" "By helping you, we help Earth," Alan replied. "We need allies, and you need a way to fight back. I think we can work together." Over the next several days, the crew of the Defiant worked closely with Zinlara and the Viridian Resistance. Samuel and Viridian scientists combined their knowledge to develop a non-lethal biological agent that specifically targeted the Dravid Prime's copper-based blood system, causing temporary weakness and confusion without permanent damage. Patricia created a computer virus that could disrupt Dravid fleet communications, making their ships unable to coordinate with each other. Meanwhile, Olivia trained small groups of Viridian fighters in tactical operations, showing them how to use the Dravids' own security patterns against them. "The key is precision," she explained as they planned the operations. "We don't need to defeat their entire military. We just need to create enough confusion and doubt to prevent them from focusing on Earth." Zinlara proved to be a valuable ally. Her people had been secretly gathering intelligence on Dravid operations for decades, identifying key facilities and weak points in their security. "There are other species like us," she told Alan during a planning session. "The Krell, the Norva, the Benthari, all forced into the Confederation and kept under control. If we could reach them, show them it's possible to resist." Alan nodded thoughtfully. A coordinated rebellion across multiple worlds would stretch the Dravid Prime forces thin. They'd have to pull ships back from Earth to deal with internal threats. "Exactly," Zinlara agreed, "but we would need to strike simultaneously. Once the first rebellion begins, the Dravid will increase security everywhere." The plan took shape. Coordinated uprisings on 3 Dravid worlds, timed to coincide with the release of Samuel's biological agent in key Dravid Prime command centers, and Patricia's virus in their fleet communication systems. "This is no longer just about intelligence gathering," Alan told his crew the night before the operation was set to begin. "We're about to start a revolution. I won't order any of you to participate. This goes beyond our original mission." Patricia spoke first. "With all due respect, Captain, our mission was to find a way to save Earth. This seems like our best chance." The others nodded in agreement. "Besides," Olivia added with a smile, "who wouldn't want to help overthrow an evil alien empire?" The day of the coordinated strikes arrived. The Defiant positioned itself near the main Dravid communication relay, ready to deploy Patricia's virus. Viridian resistance cells on 3 worlds prepared to take control of key facilities, and Samuel's biological agent was smuggled into the ventilation systems of Dravid Prime command centers by Viridian workers who had pretended to be under control for years. "All teams report ready," Olivia announced on the bridge. Alan took a deep breath. This was far beyond anything he had planned when he took command of the Defiant. They had come to gather intelligence, and now they were about to ignite a rebellion that could change the power structure of this part of the galaxy. "Begin Operation Avalanche," he ordered. Patricia activated the virus, sending it through the communication relay and into the Dravid fleet network. Almost immediately, reports came in of ships losing contact with each other and with their command centers. On the planets below, Viridian resistance fighters emerged from hiding, seizing control of power plants, transportation hubs, and communication centers. Other subjugated species, seeing their opportunity, joined the fight. And in the Dravid Prime command centers, confusion spread as the biological agent took effect, leaving the leaders disoriented and unable to coordinate a response. "It's working," Daniel reported, monitoring communications. "The Dravid forces are in chaos, They're pulling ships back from outlying areas to deal with the uprisings. Including Earth? Alan asked. Daniel checked his data. Yes. The occupation force around Earth has just received orders to return to Dravid space immediately. A cheer went up on the bridge. They had done it, created enough disruption to force the Dravid to withdraw from Earth. But Alan knew this was just the beginning. Send a message to Zinlara, he ordered. Tell her it's time for Phase 2. We need to make sure this rebellion spreads faster than the Dravid can contain it. As the Defiant moved to its next position, Alan looked at the star map showing the growing points of rebellion across Dravid space. Just one ship had sparked a flame that was now spreading beyond control, and soon that flame would reach Earth itself. Back on Earth, Admiral George Harrison received the message from deep space. It was short and encoded in a way only he would understand. Birds are flying home. Nest is safe. Operation Avalanche successful. George smiled for the first time in weeks. The Dravid occupation force above Earth was already showing signs of confusion. Their ships were moving, preparing to leave. The plan had worked. They're pulling out, he told the United Earth Council. Our ship did it. One ship did all. This? Asked Councilwoman Susan Rivera in disbelief. One ship with the right crew, George replied. Now it's our turn. As the Dravid ships prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Earth's hidden defenses powered up. During the 30 days of apparent compliance, humans had been secretly building weapons based on their studies of Dravid technology. Now, just as the alien ships were most vulnerable during their pre-jump phase, Earth struck. Electromagnetic pulses hit the Dravid vessels at precisely the frequency Olivia had identified. Their shields flickered and failed. Earth's military forces, which had appeared to be disarming but were actually just hiding, launched a coordinated attack. Target their engines only, George ordered. We want them disabled, not destroyed. In space above Earth, the Dravid ships floated helplessly, unable to fight back or escape. Then, as if from nowhere, the USS Defiant appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel right in the middle of the disabled Dravid fleet. This is Captain Alan Murphy of Earth. His voice came through on all frequencies. Your empire is falling. The Viridians, the Krell, the Norva, and others have all risen against Dravid control. Your homeworld is facing rebellions on 3 continents. Your fleets are scattered and unable to communicate. On the bridge of the Dravid command ship, Zortal stared at the small human vessel in shock. Impossible, he whispered. One ship couldn't do this. Surrender your forces and withdraw from Earth space permanently, Alan continued, or face complete defeat. Zortal had no choice. With rebellion spreading across Dravid space and his ships disabled, fighting was not an option. We surrender, he said bitterly. 2 days later, the crew of the Defiant stood before the United Earth Council, receiving medals for their bravery. Behind them on a large screen, representatives of the newly forming Galactic Alliance, including Zinlara and leaders of other formerly subjugated species, watched the ceremony. You were sent on what seemed like a suicide mission, George said, as he placed a medal around Alan's neck. Instead, you changed the balance of power in our part of the galaxy. We just played smart, Alan replied. Found the right allies, hit the right targets. After the ceremony, as the crew prepared for their next mission, this time as explorers rather than infiltrators, Natalie Powell approached Alan. I'm addressing the first meeting of the Galactic Alliance next week, she said. Any advice for a diplomat about to face a room full of alien species? Alan smiled. Just remind them that humans can do a lot with very little. We don't need a huge fleet to make a difference. Sometimes all it takes is just one ship and a smart plan. As the Defiant prepared to launch again, Alan took his place in the command chair, his crew at their stations around him. Earth was safe. The tyrants were overthrown and the stars were waiting. Where to, Captain? Daniel asked from navigation. Alan looked at the view screen showing the vast expanse of space before them. Everywhere, he said. Let's see what else is out there. With that, the USS Defiant, just one ship that had changed the course of galactic history, headed out into the unknown, carrying the best of what humanity had to offer. courage, ingenuity, and the ability to accomplish the impossible with limited resources. Just one ship was all humans ever needed to change the universe.